I was delighted to be able to read the second letter of Paul, the second reading this morning, actually, entrusting to the church the ministry of reconciliation. Uh, just to recap about our Lenten pilgrimage, it's been a lot of fun for me. I don't know how much fun it's been for you, but I've decided just to focus on some individuals, contemporary individuals, people speaking to us from our context, that have had profound influence on my spiritual life. The first, of course, Cynthia Bourgeot, who introduced me, 15 or so years ago to the tradition of Christian meditation, the mystical tradition, and especially to the practice of centering prayer. And love Cynthia, chased her all over the Pacific Northwest, plied her with wooden objects and fine wine until she agreed to come to the Napa Valley, which was great. And then we went from there, from Cynthia to Jim Finley, who was a direct disciple, if you would, of Thomas Merton. Spent 5 years at the monastery in Gethsemane with Thomas Merton. And a little bit more about Jim Finley later. Of course, last week I was blessed to look into the life of Karen Armstrong. I don't know how many of you have read The Spiral Staircase, which is her autobiography. What life was like for her coming out of 7 years in a convent into a secular world. An amazing story, an amazing woman, a woman who has an important voice on compassion, an important message for the church, I think, in our time, Karen Armstrong. And although no longer living, the person that I'm focusing on today really defines what the ministry of reconciliation looks like. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the story of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu, Nobel Prize laureate, won that in 1984. I don't know how aware you are of apartheid. There are some, in our species, there are some dark moments. I mean, there's some stuff that's happened on the planet that people have done to each other. It's just hard to figure. I mean, the horrors of the Holocaust. And they were equaled in every way in apartheid. And I have to admit, I mean, I've been on the planet for 72 years, and I really didn't know how bad it was until this past week, and really started studying apartheid and how many were killed, how many were brutalized. I mean, Nelson Mandela, 30 years in prison, he, at least he got to live. And anyway, that was the background for the one who is known as Arch. They call him Arch, Desmond Tutu. But I've got a couple of clips, YouTube. I spent the week with Tutu, he's quite a guy. And I tried to narrow down all the YouTubes that I've watched. It's tough because there's a lot of stuff on them. That's one of the gifts of contemporary people. There's a lot of information on them. But it was tough to figure out really which ones to pick. And I had to pick two. So the first one that you're going to watch is titled The Life and Times. And this was a response to Tutu's death the day after by a television station in South Africa. So this is just kind of a life and times, a summary of sort of from childhood to, his departure of the life of Desmond Tutu, which I think might be of some interest. I like him because he's a homie. He's an Anglican, he's a bishop, he's one of ours. And I think his voice is worth listening to for no other reason than that, but that's just the start. So there's the life and times. That'll kind of bring you up to speed on, his life. But then the one that I couldn't resist is the trailer for the movie called The Mission of Joy, which is, kind of a story, a documentary on his relationship with the Dalai Lama, which I think is really cool. And I think you'll enjoy that too. So this again, The Life and Time, this is from a television station in South Africa the day after Desmond Tutu died. Let her go, Nate.
Thank you very much. Thank you. was a man who knew how to laugh.
Hi, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
What a kind boy.
Thank you.
And to cry. For decades, Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu was South Africa's moral compass.
Feeling of national euphoria that took hold in those early years of our democracy masked the necessity for us to follow through the work of healing a society battered and bruised by centuries of racial division and oppression.
The man fondly known as the Arch was born in Klerksdorp in the former Transvaal in 1931. His father was a teacher, his mother a cleaner and cook. A young Tutu used to go to white people's homes offering a laundry service. He would collect and deliver the clothes while his mother would wash them. Tutu wanted to become a doctor, but because of a lack of funds, studied to be a teacher. In 1955, he married Nomalizo Leah Shenyani, one of his father's pupils. 3 years after the introduction of Bantu education in 1953, Tutu abandoned teaching in protest. He went on to study theology and was ordained as a priest in the Anglican Church. In 1978, Tutu was appointed General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, leading the clergy in their opposition of apartheid. In the 1980s, Tutu earned the wrath of conservative white South Africans when he said that there would be a black prime minister within the next 5 to 10 years. His tireless fight for freedom was recognized in 1984 when he was awarded the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize.
When you've been given the Nobel Peace Prize, it doesn't really belong to you, or in a way you can say it makes you answerable to the world. I mean, the world, as it were, has a piece of you.
Tutu was known for being fearless. In 1985, he and a fellow bishop saved a suspected police informer from being burnt to death in Duduza Township. Tutu pushed through a mob of angry youths and rescued the badly beaten man just as he was about to be thrown into his burning car, a petrol-soaked tire around his neck. In 1986, Tutu became the first black Archbishop of Cape Town, heading the Anglican Church in Southern Africa. And then, finally, democracy. Tutu coined the phrase, the Rainbow Nation, his vision for the newly freed country.
Among Madiba's greatest gifts to South Africa was the lesson he taught us to see beyond pigmentation, beyond gender, beyond sexual orientation, beyond social status and religious belief, to acknowledge the worth of all people. That's where it begins.
A year after the 1994 elections, Tutu was appointed to lead the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He retired as Archbishop of Cape Town in 1996 to devote his time to this cause.
Beautiful land with its wonderful people of different races, cultures, and languages, so that it will be a land of laughter and joy, of justice and reconciliation, of peace and unity, of compassion, caring and sharing.
Since the demise of apartheid, Tutu has campaigned for gay rights, against the Iraq War, and former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe's regime, as well as climate change.
We have only one home. But this is the only home we have.
In 2007, the Arch joined a group of senior world leaders such as former President Nelson Mandela and former US President Jimmy Carter to form the Elders to promote peace efforts around the world. In May 2013, the Arch declared that he would no longer vote for the ANC, praising its role in freeing the country from oppression, but condemning it for not doing enough to fight inequality, violence, and corruption.
I won't vote for them. That is something that I have said. And I say it with a very sore, very heavy heart. Because I have felt that on the whole, they have tended to be close to the kinds of things that we dreamt about.
Tutu had a close friendship with Nelson Mandela. When the former statesman died in December 2013, Tutu initially said he wouldn't be at the funeral because he hadn't been invited. Government denied this, and the Arch did attend.
Now I want to show the world which has come out here to celebrate the life of an extraordinary icon. We want to say thank you to that world, but you must show that world that we are disciplined.
In that same year, the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation was established, focusing on youth development and social justice. He is survived by his wife Leah and 4 children: Trevor Tamsanqa, Tandeka Teresa, Nontombi Naomi, and Mpo, a reverend who left the Anglican Church because it wouldn't accept her because she's gay. Throughout his life, Tutu spoke out about injustice wherever he saw it.
Presentation about Jim Finley, I talked about a Hindu notion that they call darshan, and darshan is the experience that you have when you sit in the presence of a holy man. And as a young person, Deepak Chopra would be brought by his father just to go to the house of a holy man and sit in the presence of other disciples and whatsoever, and not really be able to understand what was being said, but just to be in the presence, and that's called darshan. And the reason I gave that example is because that's the way I feel when I'm in the presence of Jim Finley. When that man opens his mouth, you can pick me off the floor with a spatula. And I can't understand a lot of what he's saying because he's such a sophisticated academic, but I know that every word is touching a deep place in my heart. And I've had that feeling on several other occasions. I have been in the presence of the Dalai Lama 3 times, once in Mountain View and twice in San Francisco. And I was also at an event at the University of San Francisco when they hosted a gathering of religious leaders for the students, the Jesuit students at USF, and I met Archbishop Tutu. I got to shake his hand. And whenever he enters a room, I don't know why, but there's an electricity. And it's a spiritual electricity. And both of these men exude it. They just being in the presence, regardless of what they say or whatever. And so I read the Book of Joy, many of you have, about the relationship that these 2 great spiritual leaders have. And they actually made a movie called A Mission for Joy, and you're going to see the trailer of that movie because I couldn't help myself.
sex.
Did you say that? You are a monk, remember? I've sometimes said to him, the cameras are on us.
Honestly, the energy between them is 8-year-old boy.
You are mischievous.
What is the purpose of your visit, sir?
Just enjoy our friendship and talk about joys.
I don't think you could find two people on the planet who are more different than the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. One grew up in absolute poverty, the other grew up in a 1,000-room palace.
Unfortunately, that person is Christian.
Unfortunately, he's a Buddhist.
There's a lot of shared background. Both of them have deep history of struggle against authoritarian systems.
The Tibetan people are being exterminated. Their culture and religion are being stamped out.
Age 24, I lost my own country.
Amid tear gas and police dogs, Desmond Tutu led a people against apartheid.
When people decide to be free, absolutely nothing is going to stop them from becoming free.
You can overcome the most horrendous circumstances and emerge on the other side, not broken. When you say you are pursuing happiness, you are not going to find it.
Happiness isn't just something that feels good. Happier people, they're physically healthier, they have stronger immune systems, they even live longer.
Ultimate source of happy life, inside, not outside. We really become something quite special.
Yes.
I think at the time of my death, I will remember you.
Thank you.
I think all of you will remember the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Desmond Tutu oversaw in the wake of apartheid. And you probably also remember very well the Nuremberg trials, when people who were found guilty of war crimes in the midst of the Holocaust were punished, many of them hung, some of them imprisoned for life. But the Truth and Reconciliation Commission granted amnesty to any of the perpetrators of the horrors of apartheid. They granted amnesty to any of the perpetrators of the horrors of apartheid, to those that would come and confess before the people of South Africa what they had done. And if you're not aware of those hearings, it's some of the most heart-rending confession that you'll hear. And Tutu, it was his vision that happened as a process of healing for the people of South Africa. And, you know, I know that everyone in this room, you've been hurt. You know, somebody's done damage to you, and you harbor a hatred, a sense of revenge, and it's a neurological thing. I mean, it's a survival thing that somebody that's hurt you, you want to hurt, you want to get back. And it's perhaps the biggest impediment to spiritual development that there is. You know, let's nuke Moscow. Let's assassinate Putin. Let's get those guys. And it's a natural instinct. Don't judge yourself too harshly because of it. But there really isn't, you know, there's nobody in this room that comes close to experiencing what Tutu and the Dalai Lama have experienced. I mean, you can hear him say, you know, at the age of 24, I lost my country. But, you know, the Chinese went after the Tibetan religion. You know, just a clear effort to eradicate a way of life and a people. And Tutu, what he experienced as a human being, when he was elected Archbishop of the Church of South Africa, he was still, as a black person, unable to vote. Most of us don't give a rip about voting. We do it, well, yeah, I better vote, or not. Who cares? What difference? Those images of Tutu popping his ballot into a box, that for him was the equivalent of the transfiguration on Mount Tabor in the Holy Land. It was a complete freedom and transformation. It's hard for us to imagine. If those guys can talk about joy, if they can find it in the midst of the horrors that has been their lives, maybe it's an example for us. And we say in our prayer every Sunday, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against. It just kind of rolls off your tongue, again and again and again. And I just thought it might be helpful, on the fourth Sunday of Lent, that God in Christ has given us the ministry of reconciliation. Why? Not to let other people off the hook. It's not about that. It's so you can make progress on improving your conscious contact with the God of your understanding. You cannot move beyond resentment. You can't. And you have to work of doing the work of reconciliation. The good news is that you are not in that battle alone. So I can remember thinking to myself as a young seminarian coming across the work of Tutu, wow, if that guy could do it, there's hope for even somebody like me. But this is, inevitably very, very serious business. I love it when the Dalai Lama said, happiness, inside, not outside. Inside, not outside. Jesus said, on the night he was handed over, I've come that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete.
Contributions to St. Luke's Episcopal Church help to make the digital ministry and other outreach within the community possible. If it is in your heart to make a donation, St. Luke's secure PayPal link, as well as the church's mailing information, may be found in the description of this video. Thank you.